Hi, I am Katie from Kimberbell, and today I'm going to show you how to sew the beads onto your chandelier block from Pumpkins and Potions. So normally this is something you would do once you have sewn your entire quilt together, but for demonstration purposes, it's easier for me to show you just on the one block. In front of me, I've got our completed block and our two 12-inch lengths of black beads. You can get as creative as you want and sew these on whatever you think looks best. The way that I'm going to show you today is the way that we show it on the quilt in your pictures and in your instructions. But if you have a better way, go ahead and be as creative as you want to be. All right, so I've got my black thread here. I've just doubled it up like this, and I've got a knot. I've got my knot here at the back. And I'm going to take my first length and I'm going to start on this left side here. My first end is going to be attached to this third candle here on the far left. I'm going to come up from the back. So I'm just going to sew right here with my needle. And come up from the back. And I'm just going to wind around the string in the middle of these beads, and that's going to hold it in place for me. Okay. So I've made my loop. I'm going to hold the bead there and pull my loop tight. All right. Now it's holding those beads in place for me. Oh. There we go. Now we're going to pull our loop tight, and now it's holding that in place for me. I'm just going to tack it down 3 or 4 times, enough that I know it feels secure. All right. Once you've gone around it a couple of times, the beads will stay in place a little bit better. And I've done black thread so that it doesn't show up against my chandelier and my beads. It blends in a lot better. So I've got that sewn together. I'm going to just tie it off on the back and then we'll move on to the next part. So I want my chandelier beads to look draped like they are here. So I'm going to have shorter beads and longer beads. So these are I'm going to have a shorter length and a longer length. My longer length is going to come from this one. So we're going to drape it down, and I'm just going to play with these before I sew the rest of my sections down so that I know it looks the way that I want it to. I'm going to have them connect right up here at the top of this length of beads. And then this last one will attach underneath this second candle here. And these beads are really easy to trim if you want them a little bit shorter, which we are going to end up trimming off a couple of beads here at the end. So I've got here, I can measure for you how long I have my longer loop. We've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got about 7 inches for this longer loop underneath. All right, and I'm going to be very careful about holding on so that I know where my beads, where I want it to attach to. All right, so I've got that started, and I'm just sewing this just off to the side of this stitched strand in the middle, because we've got a second set of beads that's going to be attached on this side, and I want there to be room so that they can sit right next to each other. Okay. If it helps you to mark your beads with tape or a pin or something else, feel free to do that. That would probably be a little bit easier than holding on to it like I am. So I've got that tacked down once. We're going to go around it a couple more times to really hold it in place. So now I've got that tacked down, and you can see sometimes your beads don't lay as nice round as you would like. You can play with them and manipulate to get them to lay just a little bit better. They're pretty easy to work with that way. So we've got that tacked down. I've got probably another 2 inches here, maybe go to 2.5. We're gonna have other beads that lay here at the bottom of these stitched strands, so I don't want to cover those up, but I do want to get a nice small droop here. So I've got probably about 2.5 inches here and some extra left over. What I'm gonna do before I stitch this down is I'm gonna trim off this excess little bit because I'm not gonna use it. And I just have my little snips here. You can use any scissors that will work for you, that will fit in between here. I'm just gonna get as close as I can to this last bead that I'm gonna use and just trim that off. You might have a little bit of extra thread left there, and you can just try and get as close as possible to trim that off. Just try and trim as much off as possible. And now I'm going to take with that last bead and stitch at the base of my second flame, my second candle here. So now I've got my chandelier beads attached, and I'm just gonna play with these and get them to lay the way that I want. I just tacked it in 3 places, but I think it would be good to tack it in a couple other places, maybe down here at the bottom so that it will always stay in that same spot, and then again at the bottom of this loop so that it will stay there, and then maybe farther up here, however you feel like you want your beads to lay. I think that would be good. Once it's hanging, you can see that they really just lay a lot nicer than when it's flat. And they get that natural drooping shape like we want. So you would just repeat that for the second side with the second length, and then just trim off whatever you don't need. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you enjoy making your Pumpkins and Potions quilt. Have a nice day.